Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens with your host Jake, and we're doing another one-on-one interview. We are excited to be at Barrell Craft Spirits here in the heart of J-Town, talking to Chief Nerd, but Chief Whiskey Scientist Tripp Stimson to cover all things barrel and especially this new double barrel foundation. So sit back and buckle into the latest episode of the Bourbon Lens. Tripp, thanks for joining us, or allowing me to join you, I guess would be the better way to say it.
Well, Jake, welcome back. Glad to have you. Glad you could stumble down the street, essentially, and spend some time with us.
Yeah, you know, it's not hard to get here. I always make the mistake that I need to leave, and everything's 20 minutes in Louisville.
That's right.
This is a 5-minute drive.
That's good and bad, right?
It is good and bad, and I get to drive by quite often. You know, it's a great thoroughfare through here to get to where you need to, and Waterston Trail, Rucker Eagle Parkway, depending on what side of the street you're on.
That's right.
But excited to chat with you. There's been a lot of continued innovation out of Barrell. And, you know, we talked about this beforehand. I think it's, you know, good probably to clear the air for our listeners. You know, people always have speculations, right? And you all are running a business. You and Joe and the team are running a business. And I think you made a really good point also, is like when people make strategic decisions, you don't always know the why behind it, right?
100%.
And so, you know, just tell everybody what's Barrell's up to, like, you know, what's true, what's not true, all those things, just to get this clear the air right here at the beginning.
So we're not going out of business. We're here. I had somebody tell me the other day that Barrell Craft went out of business, and I said, that certainly did not happen. We've not sold the building, obviously. We're still sitting here getting ready to have a nice drink here in our facility. We still own our rick house. We haven't sold the rick house. But one thing we have been doing, and I've really turned the knob up on, is innovation. And it's been about 13 months since you were here last, I think.
That's about
which
right.
is crazy. I cannot believe it's been that long.
Yep.
And when you were here last, we were just getting into foundation.
Yep.
And that has been a really great product for us. And so let's start with foundation. Let's just recap a little bit on what that flavor profile tastes like. Enjoy a quick sip of that, and then we can talk about some of the innovation that we've been working on over the last 13 months.
Love it. And Foundation, for those who don't know, is a 5-year-old 100 proof blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. And it's from Kentucky, I feel like
Tennessee, Indiana, and there's some Wyoming in there too.
I knew there was some weird state in there, and I couldn't remember if it was Missouri or Wyoming. So.
Well, and on Foundation too, like we do on so many of our other products, we started doing that derived mash bill.
Yep. And
so what that is, for some of you who may not have heard us talk about this before, many times people want to understand what the mash bill is in a product, because it helps give you a little bit of information about what you can expect when you taste that product. And up until about a year ago, Barrell never did that. We never put the mash bill on it because we blend everything.
Yep.
And it's not that we couldn't, it's just we didn't really see how the value of that mash bill would have been received by consumers. But you know, you all asked for it, and so we did it.
Yeah.
And so we'll go through and we'll actually calculate the volume of every mash bill at every age from every state, and end up with what we call this derived mash bill. And we put that on the back of every product now, so that you guys can get an idea of where that flavor profile is going to land.
And so what is that derived mash bill? It's 73-23-4. And so just because it says 5 years on the front as well doesn't mean that there's not older whiskey in that as well. So I think the oldest in here is 9 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think that's the great thing. And people, you know, always poo-poo on Tennessee whiskey, but you know, Chris Fletcher, I got to chat with him quite.
Oh, okay.
He always says Tennessee whiskey is a derivative of bourbon, right? Like bourbon is the category, Tennessee whiskey is derived from it. So, you know, there is Tennessee bourbon.
It's funny you bring up Fletcher. A little tidbit for you may not know. We went to college together.
Did you really?
We were in the same fraternity, and we were actually roommates for a while.
Were you really?
Yeah, we both worked at Brown-Forman together.
Okay.
So yeah, Chris is a good guy.
Yeah. He fit right in at home where he is, it seems like, in his granddad's old office.
Oh, yeah. We used to joke about that in college a little bit. So that was, we were in our 20s, and I said, you're going to be master distiller Jack Daniels one day. What do you think about that?
And lo and behold, you spoke it into existence.
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. No, but there's just a lot of good minds in whiskey and creating flavor profiles, and you all get to do a lot of the science behind it, right? Because that's where your head is. And so getting to work with these derived mash bills and working with Nick, your blender, on all of this, what's it like to be able to take 4 different states, a variety of different mash bills, and try to make the most of it? I think people don't understand how hard the blending process is. And in America, we give this bad rap to blended whiskey because we think that's low shelf, maybe some GNS in there. No, there's blending in almost everything that happens with American whiskey.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things to understand too. If you're 100% focused on the flavor that you're putting in the bottle, and you're not getting wrapped up in who did what, where it came from. It's just about the product.
Yeah.
And creating the most flavor complex and unique product that you can. And if you accomplish that goal, does it matter really what state it came from, or maybe even how old it is? I mean, it really just depends on what your focus is, right? Mm-hmm. And so as a blender, we don't have control over all of the upstream pieces that go into making whiskey. So if, as a distiller, you're going to have, your yeast strains and your grain, and you're going to have to mill the grains, and you're going to have to mash. You have to get the fermentation right, which is that black box of, oh my Lord, I hope I get this right. And then distillation, and then the primary maturation.
Yeah.
And so in those processes, there are hundreds, thousands of variables that can create problems, right? And we don't get to control any of that.
Yeah.
We have no idea what has happened upstream to the bourbons that we're buying.
Yeah.
But what we do have control over is picking certain bourbons that have certain profiles that we like, that we believe will fit well in a blend moving forward. Mm-hmm. And so one thing that helps us decide which bourbons we want to pick and how we want to use them is things that might not belong in bourbon. So where a lot of people will taste a product and go, man, this is really good. Sort of the way my brain is wired is I'll look for things that aren't supposed to be in there.
For sure.
And so we'll look for, off notes, musty notes, any sort of chemical or medicinal note, anything that you taste to go, well, I wonder what that is. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
That's just it's a signal that something has happened somewhere in the process that we couldn't control. Yeah. And clearly the person who was creating that product couldn't control it either, but it's there. And do we want it? Not necessarily.
Yep.
Is it the end of the world if we have it? No.
Yeah.
And so we are as strategic as we can be with deciding which whiskeys we want to use and why we want to use them. Mm-hmm. So Nick, Joe, and I will have conversations based on the product that we're trying to create, and we'll come up with not really a profile, but more of a direction based on some of the whiskeys we have. And we tend to talk in shorthand because we use these whiskeys all the time. So we'll talk mash bill, we'll talk age. We almost never talk distillery, which is really funny.
Yeah.
Because the mash bills can be so unique, and based on our inventory, we kind of know what we have. So we have these really interesting conversations in shorthand that nobody else would understand. But that gets us going.
Yeah.
That gets us moving in a direction that gets us this, what we call a base blend.
Yep.
And so we've got this base blend, and it's going in a certain direction, but there's always something missing. So part of our process is, as we go through putting these blends together, we're trying to fill in these gaps.
Yeah.
There are gaps within the flavors that allow us to put more flavor in. So the more flavor we can concentrate without overshadowing flavors that already exist, the more complex your overall bourbon experience is going to be. And so that's really the process that we'll go through with each of these products.
Yeah, I think that's good, right? Because I think a lot of people just don't know how you create the base, right? There's a variety of ways to get there. There's 100 ways to skin a cat, right? You can look for, your same flavor profile and try to match that consistency. You could do a Solera barrel, right? So where you're running off of that, or you can know what type of base profile is your base profile and then work from there. So I think that's great. And I think the transparency that you all are creating, especially in that process, allows the consumer, if they're doing their own infinity barrel or something, to think through about what that base spirit needs to be and how they could be additive to it. What's it missing that you may want to add from a complexity standpoint? Because just like home brews, people are becoming their own, home blenders, so to say.
That's right. And also, I think there's oftentimes a misconception of a right versus a wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that I try to nip in the bud early on in conversations, is that there's not really a right and a wrong when it comes to a bourbon that you like.
Yeah.
You and I may not like the same bourbon, but it doesn't mean one of us is right and one of us is wrong. Right.
I mean, probably, but that's okay. We'll leave it to you.
It's more about the experience.
Yeah.
It's more about the individual experience, the individual journey. And if you taste something and you like it, there's something right about that.
For sure.
Now, can it be improved upon?
Yeah.
Maybe. But a lot of people that we will talk to in some of these tastings and events, they almost get paralyzed by trying to analyze everything in this product, and they talk about alcohol. I just taste alcohol. Well, you start with that. Okay, you know that alcohol is in there. What else is in there? And then you start having these conversations with friends and family members about things that you find in there. And sometimes they're big things. Sometimes it's just fruit. And so you drill down.
Yeah.
What kind of fruit?
Yep.
It's an apple. What kind of apple? Is it a Granny Smith apple? Is it a Honeycrisp apple? Is it raw apple? Is it ripe? Is it rotten? Is it cooked?
Yeah.
So you get all these different things. And so when you really train your mind to focus on an individual flavor and then the state of that flavor and where that flavor comes from, mm-hmm. then you begin to really unpack the complexity of these products. Yeah. The problem is that when you're doing that, you're not necessarily just enjoying a cocktail at that point. It is very mentally taxing to go through that.
For sure. And that's why, when we write reviews and things, we kind of keep it high level. Hey, these are the boom, boom, boom highlights that we're receiving. And these are things you can expect. But if I write a note, my grandma's Christmas cookies, which I relate everything to food, I'm going to use those notes because that's how I, go about the flavor profile. Or we had one, you talk about off-putting notes. And then we had one that tasted like going to a manufacturer, an automotive manufacturer. But then as that whiskey oxidized, the bouquet opened up, and then that manufacturing note went away, and now it's caramel, vanilla, chocolate, right? It's so crazy how the elements can do so much to the overall whiskey, and so always revisit it. If you hate a bottle at first, always revisit it. Pour some out. It's okay if you pour some down the drain to get some oxidation in there. Set it out in the open for an hour or two. See what happens, because a lot of times you're gonna come back as better. Now, to your point, sometimes things that go into the barrel probably should have never came out of that barrel.
Yeah, the barrel is it's not the magic box.
No.
It is not, whatever you distill goes into the barrel and magically it's going to be this wonderful product. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it did, but it doesn't. And the barrel does a lot of things. But again, it's like anything else, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. And so, speaking of that, so when you think about all the things that you all have to deal with, one of the things I think consumers know, they use this term whiskey glut or whatever. It's not a glut. People just match production to what consumers want. And so instead of having everything allocated, you now get opportunities to understand what is going on in the marketplace. And so for you all as barrel buyers, right, and purveyors of whiskey, do you all continue to see an opportunity to source more whiskey over time?
Absolutely. I mean, there's always been a lot of whiskey on the market.
Yeah.
With Barrell, Barrell's been in business now. We're in our 12th year. 12 years of this, mm-hmm. from basically ideation to today. And there's always been a lot of bourbon out there.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like anything else. It's relationships.
Yeah.
And having relationships, knowing people, having conversations, networking into certain availability, and then knowing what to do with those products once you get them.
Yeah.
And, over the last 12 years, there's been a lot of people building distilleries. And in the last 5 or 6, there's been a lot of massive facilities go online, millions of OPGs going online, and that's just in Kentucky alone.
I know.
And so there's going to be all kinds of bourbon coming out. So again, never been a better time to be a blender.
No, it never has. So you talked about early on, going to that. So we've had this new opportunity to be a blender and create success. And one of the things early on you mentioned is innovation, right? And so you innovated first by putting out an age-stated flagship product, right? 5 years, going to be consistent as best as you all can to a flavor profile. And now to innovate on that, you've done a double barreling of that same product. This is relatively new. I think it's a couple weeks old, maybe in market.
Yeah.
So when you think about double barreling, walk me through that process, because I have the question, is that the same thing as double oaking? Is that, is this different phraseology? What's it look like to create this product?
So Foundation was our first attempt at blending something that wasn't cask strength. And while our blending foundation was basically the same from an approach perspective, as you begin to decrease proof in bourbon, solubilities change. So some of your flavor characteristics are going to change. The perception, individual perception is going to change. Some things are going to go away. Some things are going to appear. And again, this is just the science of the matter here that we're talking about. We can't really control those things. If we're going to target 100 proof, then the whiskeys that we're using at 100 proof are going to be what they're going to be.
100%.
So then the question is, how do we want to go through the process to get all these different whiskeys to 100 proof to make sure that finished product blend is going to have the complexity that we're looking for and stay together at 100 proof. And so that was an interesting challenge for us, because it is very different to blend at 100 proof versus trying to blend at cask strength, because you have all of those variables. And where we netted on Foundation was a very unique 100 proof product that drinks like a cask strength product. So we managed to keep all of that complexity in there without diluting it all out to what a lower proof bourbon would taste like. It doesn't taste watered down.
No, for sure.
And so then the question was, like we often do, can we make it more complex? Can we put some more flavor in there? And if we wanted to do that, where would we go to get it? Well, everybody has been talking about toasted products, double oaked product, however the phraseology we want to use, putting something in another barrel for some amount of time to get more barrel quality. And so we wanted to see what that would do to Foundation. And so we have a new product that we did just release several weeks ago. It's in the market, may not be on the shelf yet, but it's real close to being on the shelf. And what we wanted to do is see how the whiskeys that we use to create Foundation would do in a double barrel product. How would they interact with a secondary cask that we had toasted? These are American oak casks that are only toasted, not charred. What kind of additional flavor components can we pull from that barrel that would then layer into a finished product that would be a double barrel representation of Foundation? And so after some experimentation, we ended up with a blend that is very similar in construction to the parent Foundation, but it has a lot more sweet, soft, toasted characteristics from that secondary barrel. It's not that big oak bombshell that people think about. Every time you put it in a barrel, you're just going to get this over-oaked, heavy wood characteristic. You don't get that in this.
So I'm going back and forth between, and so like on the nose, right? Brighter on the regular Foundation. So you're getting, I would say, more citrus and caramel vanillins. Over here, this is like Werther's Original caramels. So that softer, soft caramel and toffee notes. And this one I think has more like raisin, like oatmeal raisin in this one, so you get that bready characteristic coming out. This one I don't think you get more barrel influence, like from just it being a charred oak barrel that it was in, right? I think that's more prevalent here, where this is a little more softer and more oatmeal raisiny and bran flaky, which is not a bad thing. I think people like crap on bran flakes because like their grandpa ate them.
Yeah.
Like, go back and eat bran flakes.
That's
They're not
right.
bad.
That's right. Again, it's sort of the frame of mind that you're in when you're doing this. Do you already have a preconceived notion of, you know what you're going to taste and you already know you don't like it, but you haven't tried it?
Yep.
If you're going into it that way, you're setting yourself up for failure.
100%.
And if you can sort of clear your head and be open to new ideas, new products, or maybe even do it blind, and that's the way I would suggest doing
1,000%.
You're going to really be honest with yourself. You're going to be a little bit vulnerable, but you're going to find out what you really like and what you really don't like.
Yeah, I really like the apricot in this, and there's that really nice like juiciness to the toasted, where the regular foundation is a little more stringent on the palate, so it dries out. This one kind of makes me salivate a little bit more and want more of it. So
there's certainly an oily characteristic that helps hold that flavor on your tongue a little bit longer.
And I think that's what's fun about these. I mean, like essentially the same thing. This mash bill, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Maryland, 73-23-4. So I mean, essentially the same derived mash bill, just with that secondary toasted barrel. And how long did you let these rest in there? Like this?
So it's anywhere from 2 months to 2 years in that product.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So like this wasn't something you all thought of overnight.
No. No, we've been playing with secondary maturation for almost as long as we've been in business.
I mean, I really like foundation because I love 100 proof whiskey. Like I know people love barrel proof whiskey. It's great. I have enough hair on my chest. I don't need any more. I have enough hair on my face. We're good. As long as this stays on top.
That's
we're
right.
Good.
That's right.
Well, I always check. I always tell my barber, am I thinning anywhere?
Yeah.
But like, man, I think if you just want a sip that you can just enjoy, you're going to be hard to beat that double barrel. Like this is something you can pour, neat rock cocktail. That's what I always look for when I'm buying new whiskeys. Can I find different way to utilize it? This would be fun to utilize in multiple ways.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we really wanted to make sure we could do is enjoy it either neat on the rocks or in a cocktail.
Yeah.
A lot of cast strength products can overwhelm a cocktail.
Oh yeah.
They get to a point where it's like, okay, this tastes like the bourbon with all this other stuff, and it's not a cocktail, right? It's not the symphony. It's
unbalanced.
But you've got you've got the makings of the symphony in there, but you're not in harmony there.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we do when we're creating these things, not only is blind tasting, but we'll actually, once we get close enough to where we think we have something, we'll drink it blind and we'll drink it neat. We'll drink it on the rocks, and then we'll make some cocktails with it.
Yeah.
Just to see what it does, how it holds up. Do we even like it?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't like it in a cocktail. It just depends on what it is.
For sure.
But we'll actually go through those steps to make sure it does do what it's supposed to do.
So cocktails I can think of this would be great in. I hate Manhattan, so Manhattans are off the table. Persona non grata there. I do really enjoy a sidecar. I know it normally calls for brandy, but that would be good in a sidecar, I think. I think it would hold up really well there. And obviously an old-fashioned would be good. And, I don't know how to call cocktails. Like normally I go to a whiskey cocktail bar and I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I don't like. Make it happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get some shit and sometimes I don't.
And you pay for it either way.
And I pay $15 for whatever that drink was.
That's right.
And so that's why I always prefer just kind of a neat pour. Or can I have it over a rock?
Yeah.
But for people who love cocktail culture, if you're a home cocktail person, this is a bottle I think you should pick up and play around with because I think it's got a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're really happy with the way both of these have turned out.
And is there an increased price on this one?
No, they're both 55-ish, depending on state and store.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. I think we talked about this offline. even your Halo bottles are approachable to those people who want to go get them. Or if you're looking for that exceptional gift, and you want to pay, your limit's $400, right? You can get pretty much your whole lineup under that.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. Not everyone has access to the quality of liquid you have from the multitudes of different states and countries to be able to put that out, right? Your Canadian 33-year-old that just went out, that was under $200. Like, come on now.
Yeah. Well, we want you to drink this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? These aren't baseball cards. I love seeing our stuff on shelves, but if we were just going to have them put on shelves and you weren't going to drink it, then we could put anything in the bottle and it wouldn't matter.
For
right?
sure.
And charge an exorbitant amount of money, and you just have this trophy sitting on your shelf. But what's more amazing to me is the effort that we put into creating these things, and then have people tell me a story about how much they loved the product when they were doing whatever it was they were doing. They had it at a wedding. They were on vacation. They were at the beach. I shared this with my brother. We went to a concert. We've heard so many awesome stories where people go and live their life and they take Barrell Craft Spirits with them.
Yep.
And if we're overpriced and people can't afford to experience what we're creating, there's no reason to do it.
True.
Right? It just sort of all goes out the window.
Yeah. And I'm with you. If I get it, I drink it. I think besides the stuff that showed up this week, I have 2 unopened bottles in my house. And it's not because, one of them is because I don't physically own the one. And the other one, I haven't found a reason to open it. It's there. We can open it. But no one's ever came to the house and was like, can we open that bottle?
Yeah.
I don't know, there's too much whiskey that comes in. Like from a podcast perspective, I can't just be like, let me open a new bottle if I don't have to open it.
Yeah.
So, some of those kind of fall through the cracks.
Well, but the day will come with the right situation.
Exactly.
And it's, you know what? Today's that day.
No, nothing's off limits in my house. And that's the way I look at it. If you want to try something, try it. And I shared my samples of the barrel, the Scotch, the 2 Islands.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite releases we've all done. I talk about Seagrass all the time because it's a great one. But you have something that's newish coming to the market soonish.
Yeah. So this guy here, we just bottled this yesterday. We've been working on this for a while, but this is an iteration of Vantage that we've been playing with for some number of months now. Vantage was originally a blend that we finished in Mizunara, French and American oak.
Yep.
All the characteristics of those woods. And then we went one step further with the toasted Vantage, and we took the finished product and put it in a Grand Cru barrel. And so that's a much longer air-dried stave barrel. Mm-hmm. It's a much slower, lower temperature toast over a longer period of time. And I know a lot of people are thinking right now as they're watching this video, you mean they took something that was finished in 3 brand new barrels following a primary maturation for a secondary maturation, and then took that product and put it in another barrel for a tertiary maturation? It's like, yes, that's exactly what we did. And it does not taste over-oaked. It is surprisingly quite sweet.
And the other thing I will tell you, it's quite light. That's the one thing I noticed, right with French and Mizunara cask, big bouquets of oak that come out of there, slightly astringent normally in a good way. But this, you get all of those, but that toasting process sweetens it up. You get those underlying, and the whiskey is light on your palate.
Yeah.
The whiskey is light throughout. That's what I'm shocked about, is how dark that is, how complex it smells, how light it is on the palate. I think that's the magic of it all, is you go in expecting this big oak note, because you get oak sweetness and you get that oakiness on the front, but you don't get it on the palate. You get a little bit softer palate, which is nice.
Yeah, it was pretty surprising even to us as we were working through what the final blend ought to be on this.
Yeah,
what that Grand Cru barrel did.
Yeah, I am It's very viscous too. Like I don't account anything for legs, but like the viscosity in the mouthfeel is very good. It hugs the glass like none other.
Quite the telltale.
Yeah. I mean, this thing is what, 115 proof? Yeah, you'd probably think this is maybe 105.
Yeah, we just bottled that yesterday.
Yeah.
We shipped some out this morning, so it's not even on the shelf yet.
I think people will like this. It's something different. It packs a good long finish, right? People always talk about finish of like maybe as a Kentucky hug. This finish is like just mellow throughout the mid palate, in the mid esophagus, I'll say.
Yeah.
And you can sit with this. This next to a campfire might be the move, right? Because you'll get all the smells of the campfire, and then this, like the nose will be able to, kind of push through that, and you'll still get to be able to smell it and enjoy it. And we're about to be campfire weather, right? Like all the snow in Kentucky's gone. Finally, it's 70 degrees today. What the hell's up with that?
Right. Somebody messed up the thermostat again.
I know. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, though, so it'll get cold.
Good. My truck needs a wash. All that salt.
For sure. It's a pain in the rear end. But, you all continue to push the envelope. So the last question I have for you today, as you think about 2025, right? We are entering a space where the consumer has infinite choices, right? What would you expect Barrell to do to continue to, be out there in front of the consumer?
So I think with sort of where things are in the bourbon market, there's more bourbon out there now than there ever has been.
Yep.
Consumers are more aware. They are more educated than they ever have been. Mm-hmm. And so in order to stay relevant, stay on top of our game, or just the bourbon game in general, it's going to drive innovation. Yeah, we are going to continue to innovate, but anybody who wants to continue to matter in these bourbon spaces are going to have to innovate. Mm-hmm. And you can define innovate however you want to define it. I mean, you can call it 100 different things. Yep. But we've already released several different things. Well, I guess some of them were at the end of last year, but we have a handful of things we're getting ready to release that were innovations that have been in the pipeline for many years. Mm-hmm. We were talking before we turned the camera on. We've been playing with secondary maturation for over a decade now. Yeah. Before, people were still getting into the industry and talking about building distilleries, and we're talking about how can we customize the barrel so that a secondary maturation can add a certain flavor characteristic to a product in order to build certain types of complexity. So what we're doing now is we're taking a lot of that innovation and bringing it forward and beginning to put some of these things in bottles. Yep. And so you're going to see a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of these are going to be smaller releases just because a lot of it was sort of R&D. Yep. We were trying to figure out how these barrels and these whiskeys would work together in order to figure out which directions we wanted to go on larger scales. Yep. So depending on how some of these turn out, we could turn them into much larger products for the future. But there will be no shortage of innovation coming from us in the coming year. Well, I'm excited about that. Again, right down the street. So if you ever need an extra taster, you know a guy. It's not too far. I feel like I know a thing or two about whiskey. You're welcome anytime. Well, really appreciate it, Tripp. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for coming by. Yeah. Everyone, thank you for joining this episode of The Bourbon Lens. As always, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it is, Facebook at Bourbon Lens. You can follow Barrell Craft Spirits on all the social medias as well. And we'll catch you next time. Cheers. Thanks.